Now we've already touched a little bit on how to zoom and change the magnification of your document. Remember, you can always go down to the very bottom left corner to choose some predefined magnifications, or you can go up to View and choose how much to zoom in or to fit your page to your screen. The Zoom tool looks like a magnifying glass, gives you the ability to click exactly where you want to zoom in to. In this case, if I wanted to zoom in onto this text, I can click, and just a couple of clicks automatically makes this much larger and easy to see. With it larger and easy to see, I can choose my Type tool and I can begin making edits to it. Now, since zooming and moving around is a very common thing to do, rather than having to go back and forth and choose my Zoom tool and go choose a different tool, a good keyboard shortcut to know is to hold down the Command spacebar if you're on a Mac or Control spacebar if you're on a Windows, and this will temporarily choose your Zoom tool. Another thing to note is that when you have your Zoom tool, when you hold the Option key, it'll turn it into a minus sign and it'll zoom out. So in this case, if I was to make edits with my Type tool selected, I can hold Option, Command, Spacebar, and this will zoom out. Or if I let go of the Option and just hold Command and the Spacebar, it'll zoom in. Let's return to normal view by going up to View, and let's fit the page to the window. Now, if I'm navigating across multiple pages, especially if there's a lot of them, the Pages panel is one of the most often used panels to have open. With it selected and opened up, you may need to click on the bottom edge to expand it to see both page 1 and 2. If I double click on page 2, it automatically jumps to that page. So double clicking on a page in the Pages panel allows you to quickly move to whatever page you need it to be. Also, as a reminder, at the very bottom left-hand corner, you can click on the page and choose it down here as well. In addition to choosing them, you can also type in a page number if you had multiple pages, or you can press the little arrow to go to the next or previous pages, or even jump to the very end of your document. A final way that you can jump to any page within your document is going to the Layout drop-down menu. From here, you can tell it to go to the next page or to go to a specific page. If you choose Go to Page, this will give you a pop-up dialog box and you can choose whichever page you want. In my case, if I type in 2, you can see how it automatically goes to that page. By the way, when working on large documents that have hundreds of pages, very often it's a good idea to know the keyboard shortcut of Command J to jump to those pages. I remember it as Command J for jump, to jump to page. Since we're talking about navigating around pages, especially if you zoom in, the hand tool comes very handy. Again, let's use our keyboard shortcuts of Command and the plus sign to zoom in. Then we can hold the space bar and get our little hand symbol. This allows us to move around to see exactly where we want to be able to see in our document. Again, if we have our Type tool selected and we're working in this area, we can hold down Command and the space bar and the Option to zoom out. Oops. If we make a mistake, you can always do Command Z, there you go. And then we can deselect it and hold down the space bar to move around. Just be aware that when you hold the space bar, you may not want to be in type mode. I typically choose my selection tool before moving around to a different area or to a different part before making any kind of edits. With my black arrow selection tool selected, let's click on any object. In this case, I've chosen this text frame box. With it selected, whenever you right-click on a selected object, this will pop out what's known as the context menu. Context menus display commands that are relevant to whatever you have selected. So in this case, if I wanted to quickly copy or cut or make modifications to it, this gives me the ability to quickly and easily access these options and edits that I can make to it. Once you're done using it, you can always deselect it by clicking away and it will go away. One of my favorite things I like to do with my context menu is to right-click on an area, then I can choose Zoom, and I can tell it to zoom out to the actual size or to fit the selection to my window. This allows me to quickly and easily zoom out so I can see everything. Again, right-click and choose Zoom from your context menu. Now in InDesign, when working with panels, certain panels also have the ability to have panel-specific options. For example, let's click on the Swatches panel. You'll notice that this shows a variety of different color swatches, and if I click on this little icon, this will open up the options for that particular panel. From here, I can do things like change it to be a large list to a small thumbnail preview, and you can see how it changes the layout and look of this. Additionally, I can do other things like create new color swatches or make edits or changes to it, or even save the color swatches. Different panels are going to have different options. So if you want, you can click on an option or a panel and then choose and see the options for it. Some panels don't have options. For instance, if I click on the gradient panel and tell it to hide the options, you can see how it actually contracts it down. The other thing you can do, if you don't see all of the options, instead of clicking here to show the options, is to click on the up and down arrows. This will hide and show all of the options for that panel. The final thing to note is that we can change the preferences for all of InDesign itself. Preferences for InDesign can either be affected the document you're working on or the entire user interface for all of your documents. So playing around with it kind of depends on what you want to do. Now, if you're on a Mac computer, you can find the preferences in the InDesign drop-down menu, and there's preferences here. If you're on a Windows computer, you can find the preferences at the end of the Edit drop-down menu. It'll be at the very bottom down there. In either case, let's locate our Preferences window, and let's open up the Interface Preferences. From these preferences, this gives you the ability to change the appearance of how all of the user interface looks on InDesign. One of the more popular ones is changing the color theme. If I made it lighter, by selecting it, you can see how it will change the layout and look of all of the user interface. Making it darker will make it look like this as well. You can also change how your cursor and gestures move, and even the performance of it, making it faster or slower. If you click on the user interface scaling, if you have difficulty seeing some of the tools or the tooltips, this gives you the ability to change the size of it and scale up everything. Additionally, when you make changes to this, they'll only take effect the next time you have to restart InDesign. In my case, I'm going to keep them a little bit smaller, and we'll say OK to this. So that's it for the overview of working in InDesign and being able to find the tools, panels, and navigation for any document. The last thing I'll leave you with is being able to explore more on your own. Of course, we couldn't cover everything in one video. At any time, if you want to be able to see more tool hints, you can always go to Window, down to Utilities, and choose Tool Hints. This will open up a little panel that will allow you to click on any tool and it'll tell you more about it. In addition to the modifier keys and some different things you can do with it, it also gives you keyboard shortcuts. And regardless what tool you have, this will give you the ability to learn a little bit more about how you can best use and modify that tool. The other thing you can play around with, are your keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts give you the ability to save a lot of time. To see and change all of your keyboard shortcuts, you can go to Edit menu, down towards the bottom, and choose Keyboard Shortcuts. With these selected, you can select all the different options you're able to work with. Now, some of these don't have shortcuts at all. Some of these are a lot more common. For instance, if I go to the Edit menu, I can choose Find Next. You can see it's currently set to this default keyboard shortcut. I do recommend, however, use caution when editing and changing your keyboard shortcuts. You don't want to overwrite or to change something that's most commonly used for other people as well. The final thing you can also look at are your menus and your menu settings to see where everything is at and what's visible or not visible by default. With this lesson finished, we can close out our document by clicking on the little X at the top. If it asks you to save, you don't have to save it. You can say, don't save. This will automatically close out everything that we've created.